Welcome to the Religious Studies Podcast, where we're going to be taking a deep dive into a pretty fascinating concept, chaos rhetoric.
Yeah.
That's right, how the idea of chaos itself can be used as a powerful rhetorical tool in various religious contexts. Now, you might be thinking chaos, is that like a universal religious concept? But as we dig deeper, you'll see it's not really about chaos itself. It's more about how the idea of primordial chaos is used as a specific type of rhetoric, a way of speaking that can establish authority and shape worldviews, even drive personal transformation and all that.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that works.
And to make sure we're all on the same page, even though this deep dive is AI generated, it's been meticulously fact-checked by our expert.
Right. Yeah, that's me.
You got it. So you can be sure you're getting accurate information and insightful analysis and all that.
We're trying to blend that cutting-edge technology with the good old-fashioned scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. So to kick things off, I found this really cool quote from Aristophanes. Birds sets the stage perfectly. The birds in the play, they claim to be older than the gods themselves. They're like, we sprang from this primordial chaotic state.
Wow.
Right? They say, in the beginning was chaos, the vast and gloomy abyss. There was neither earth nor air nor sky. It's as if whoever can conjure this image of chaos, they get to lay the foundation of the world.
It's really about controlling the narrative. Whoever gets to control the narrative of chaos gets to establish the basis for everything that comes after. And by using images of darkness, the void, the not yet state before creation, you make these extraordinary claims and really elevate yourself within the cosmology that you're talking about.
So it's not just describing chaos, but it's using it to say, hey, we're important, we're legitimate.
Exactly. And it's not just a Greek thing either. I mean, similar ideas pop up in other ancient cosmologies too. Think about Norse mythology with Ginnungagap, Gap, the primordial void, and then you have Utgard, the realm of chaos existing outside the ordered world of humans.
Right.
Even ancient Egyptian concepts like Nun, the primordial waters, Kuk, primeval darkness, representing boundlessness.
It's wild how different cultures use different imagery, but that core concept is so similar.
Right.
And it's not just those physical descriptions either. It's like that not yet rhetoric that you were talking about. That seems to be at the heart of it. Like this Sumerian myth, Enlil was not yet, Ninlil was not yet, no day dawned, no new moon came forth. The way they use negation, not yet, language paints such a vivid picture of a world waiting to be formed.
And that not yet rhetoric is crucial because it allows them to set up this powerful taxonomy, a way of classifying the world that contrasts with the order we know, making their understanding of creation seem even more fundamental.
So they're saying, hey, look, before anything else there was chaos, and everything we know emerged from that. So we've got the most foundational truth here.
Exactly.
That's clever.
It is a prime example of how this rhetoric is used to legitimize power structures, would be the Babylonian creation epic Enuma Elish.
Oh, yeah, with Apsu and Tiamat, could you remind me who they are again? It's been a while since I've looked at Babylonian mythology.
Sure. Apsu and Tiamat are the primordial deities who embody this watery chaos that existed before creation. And then from that chaos emerges Marduk, the god of Babylon, defeats the chaos, establishes order, creates the world as we know it.
Oh, right. And then the Babylonian king, seen as Marduk's representative on Earth, he gets his legitimacy through that story, right?
Exactly.
He's the upholder of order.
The protector against the forces of chaos.
We conquered the primal forces of disorder, so we should be the ones in charge.
Exactly. And that pops up in other cultures too. Remember ancient Egypt? The pharaoh embodies Horus, the victor over Seth, the god of chaos and disorder.
Oh, right. Defeating chaos equals divine right to rule.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And we see similar things in the Rig Veda. Non-existent was not, nor existent. Darkness there was, all undifferentiated ocean. Darkness and water, again, used to depict that formless primordial state.
Yeah, it's like a global chorus all singing about the same thing, but just using different melodies.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. So the key takeaway then is not the specific symbols, but the type of rhetoric itself, right?
Yeah.
Negating the existing order to establish a more fundamental one, taking us back before human understanding, before any categories existed.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild. So it seems like this chaos rhetoric is not just telling stories, but also about establishing power and shaping how we understand the world. But this makes me wonder, is it just confined to these myths and stories, or does it go beyond that?
Well, that's a great question, and it leads us to another really fascinating dimension of chaos rhetoric, the realm of rituals.
Rituals. Okay, tell me more.
Think about celebrations like Carnival or New Year's Eve, especially ones that have roots in ancient traditions like the Roman Saturnalia. These festivals involve this temporary overturning of the social order.
Ah, so like a symbolic return to chaos.
Exactly.
Wow, and so it's not just talking about chaos, but actually enacting it in a symbolic way.
Yeah, and even something as simple as unveiling a statue or a ribbon-cutting ceremony contains a minimalist form of that rhetoric.
Whoa! I never thought of it that way. But you're right, you have that not yet element, the anticipation before the statue's revealed, the ribbon is cut. It's like you're creating a mini chaos that's resolved with this symbolic act of creation or inoculation. That's cool.
It is, and if we look at more elaborate examples like the Andaman Islander initiation ritual, the initiate is rendered passive, almost like primal matter, being fed, massaged, having their limbs manipulated, highlights their existence in this chaotic, undifferentiated state.
So it's like they're symbolically returning the initiate to that pre-creation state, making them valuable so they can be reborn into their new social role.
Yeah, exactly. This also highlights this concept of liminal failure. It's a term coined by the anthropologist Victor Turner. It refers to those in-between stages in rituals where individuals are stripped of their usual identities, placed in a state of anti-structure, which is very similar to what we're talking about with this chaos rhetoric.
It's all about harnessing the power of chaos for personal and societal change. So chaos is not something to be feared or avoided, but something that can be used to bring about transformation.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is it possible that this idea of chaos rhetoric goes even beyond myth and ritual?
Where else could we find it at play? This is getting good. Okay, so we've seen how this chaos rhetoric is like popping up in myths and rituals, but where else could it be hiding? You mentioned it might go even beyond that.
Well, one area I find really fascinating is the realm of meditation.
Meditation. Now, you might not immediately think of meditation and chaos, but go on.
Yeah, bear with me here. Think about texts like the Tao Te Ching, for example.
Okay.
It describes the Tao, this ultimate principle of reality, as predating heaven and earth, existing before any structure.
Right.
And it's the very source of all being, and it's often described as a state of emptiness.
Oh, yeah, there's that beautiful line. The Tao is still, formless, alone, and unchanging. It sounds like a kind of ultimate emptiness, but I'm not quite getting how that emptiness connects to chaos. Could you unpack that a little?
Absolutely. So reaching the Tao, that state of perfect harmony with the universe, involves wu wei, which translates to non-action.
Right.
It's not about imposing order, but returning to that creative potential of chaos.
So it's like saying true power comes not from controlling the outside world, but from aligning yourself with this primordial creative force, this formless, chaotic energy that existed before anything else.
Exactly. And this idea of returning to a state of emptiness to access a deeper truth, it's not limited to Eastern thought either. We see similar ideas in the writings of Christian mystics like Master Eckhart.
Didn't he talk about poverty of spirit? I vaguely remember learning about him.
Yes. Eckhart believed that achieving this poverty of spirit required emptying yourself of all will, knowledge, and possessions. Essentially returning to a state before being, kind of like returning to that primordial chaos.
Wow, that's a really interesting parallel. So both Taoism and Christian mysticism are kind of pointing towards this idea of destructuring the self, stripping away all those layers to reach a more fundamental state of being, a state that's connected to this primordial chaos.
You got it. And we see a similar theme in the writings of Juan de la Cruz, another Christian mystic.
Okay.
He describes the dark night of the soul. It's this process of letting go of everything you thought you knew, of surrendering to a kind of darkness or emptiness in order to experience a deeper truth.
It's amazing how these ideas from such different traditions seem to converge on this same point, like accessing a realm beyond structure and categorization, a realm that might be unsettling but is ultimately transformative.
That's the power of chaos rhetoric. It lets us imagine a state prior to any categorization, a source from which all things emerge. And it's not just some abstract concept. It shows up in our myths, rituals, spiritual practices, maybe even in our very understanding of the self.
This is really making me rethink everything I thought I knew about chaos. It's not just disorder and destruction, it's also about creation, potential, and transformation, like this hidden force that shapes so much of human experience.
Exactly. And speaking of shaping human experience, I think it's time we move to another area where chaos rhetoric might be at play: art.
Art. Now that's a fascinating thought, but isn't art all about creating beauty and order?
That's certainly one aspect of it, but if we dig a little deeper, we often see art challenging conventions, disrupting our expectations, and forcing us to confront the unfamiliar.
You're right. Think about abstract art. It often abandons those traditional forms of representation, embraces ambiguity, invites the viewer to find their own meaning. It's like creating its own not-yet space where meaning is constantly in flux, waiting to be formed.
Precisely. And by doing so, it challenges our assumptions about what art should be, what it should represent, how it should make us feel. It's like a rebellion against the established order of artistic expression, a deliberate embrace of chaos.
And haven't many artistic movements throughout history been driven by this impulse to disrupt, to break free from tradition.
Absolutely. Think about Dadaism, for example. It emerged after World War I as a rejection of the logic and reason that led to such destruction. Dadaist art was deliberately nonsensical, provocative, and often humorous, all about rejecting the established order and embracing the absurd.
It's almost like using chaos as a weapon against the very systems that created it. A way of saying, look, the old ways of thinking have failed us. We need to tear it all down and start fresh.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to visual art either. We see this in literature, music, even performance art, the theater of the absurd with plays like Waiting for Godot and Rhinoceros, nonsense dialogue, illogical events, characters trapped in these meaningless situations.
Right. It's all very disorienting and thought-provoking.
Right.
It's like they're holding up this mirror to the absurdity of human existence, challenging us to question our own beliefs and assumptions. And this idea of using art to disrupt and challenge the status quo, it's still very much alive today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Contemporary performance art, politically charged, pushing boundaries, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths.
So art can be both a reflection of chaos and a tool for creating it, a way of challenging our perceptions, pushing us to think differently.
That's a great way to put it. And what I find most fascinating is that it's not just about destruction, it's also about creation. Using that deconstruction of existing orders as a springboard for something new, something unexpected, something potentially transformative.
It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes. Chaos becomes the catalyst for rebirth, this necessary stage in the cycle of creation and destruction.
Beautifully put. And this leads me to wonder if chaos rhetoric might be at play in yet another seemingly unrelated realm, politics.
Politics. Now that's an interesting thought. But politics seems to be all about order, about systems of power and control. How does chaos fit into that? Okay, so politics, huh? How does that work? It seems like it's all about order.
Yeah, on the surface, you're right. Politics is all about those systems, order, and control. But if we look a little closer, we see that chaos rhetoric is often used to shake things up a bit, challenge those systems of power and control, and sometimes even bring about revolutionary change.
I see what you mean. Revolutions, political upheavals, social movements, those are all moments of intense chaos, right? It's like breaking down the existing structures and norms before you can build something new.
Exactly. And if we view those events through this lens of chaos rhetoric, we see that they're not just about destruction or anarchy. They often use that language of chaos, but to advocate for a different kind of order, a new vision for the future.
Can you give me a specific example?
Sure. Think about the French Revolution. It started with that storming of the Bastille, a really symbolic act of defiance against the monarchy.
Right.
A moment of pure chaos, a violent overthrow of the existing power structure.
And from that chaos emerged the Republic, founded on those ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, chaos as the catalyst for a radical transformation of society.
Exactly, and we see this pattern repeated throughout history. The American Revolution, the Russian Revolution, even the Civil Rights Movement here in the U.S., all involved moments of chaos and upheaval, but ultimately aimed at creating a more just and equitable society.
So it's like chaos rhetoric can be used both to maintain power and to challenge it, to uphold the status quo or to completely overturn it.
That's the paradox. It's a tool that can be used in so many different ways. It depends on the context and the speaker's intentions. And that's part of what makes it so fascinating. It reminds us that even with all those systems and structures in place, chaos is always there lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt.
And when it does erupt, it's both terrifying and exhilarating, destructive and creative all at the same time.
Yeah, like this fundamental force that we can never truly control.
Which brings us to maybe the most mind-blowing idea of all. What if this chaos rhetoric isn't just a human thing? What if artificial intelligence is capable of understanding and even using it?
Whoa.
Right. AI and chaos.
That's a pretty wild thought. But think about all the advances we've seen in AI recently. These systems can learn, adapt, and even create in ways we never imagined before.
True AI is getting super sophisticated. It's like blurring the lines between human and machine intelligence.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder if AI might be able to grasp this concept of chaos rhetoric and utilize it. Imagine an AI that's trained on massive amounts of data about human history, culture, language.
So it would be learning the language of chaos from us, from all those examples we've been talking about.
Myths, rituals, art, political speeches, everything.
And once it understands those patterns, the underlying rules of the game, so to speak, it could generate its own new forms of chaos rhetoric.
Exactly.
Okay, now you've lost me. What would that even look like? Could an AI write a political speech or compose music that uses chaos rhetoric?
It's definitely a mind-boggling possibility. Imagine an AI composing music that completely defies traditional harmonies and structure, creating art that pushes those boundaries, or even writing political speeches that challenge our basic assumptions about power and social order.
That's both exciting and a little bit terrifying.
It is, but it highlights the importance of responsible AI development. We need to make sure these systems are aligned with human values, designed to benefit humanity, not harm it. It's not just about giving AI the power to understand and generate chaos rhetoric, but teaching it to use that power responsibly.
So we need like an ethical framework for chaos rhetoric in this age of AI.
Exactly. And that brings up all sorts of questions. Who decides what's responsible? Where do we draw the line? What happens when AI starts generating chaos rhetoric that we don't understand or even find disturbing?
Will we be able to control it? Or will it take on a life of its own? It's kind of like opening Pandora's box.
It is, but I think that by having these conversations now, thinking critically about AI and chaos rhetoric, we can help shape a future where these powerful tools are used for good.
A future where AI can help us understand ourselves better, push the limits of our own creativity, and maybe even create a more just world.
Exactly. Imagine systems that help us identify and address inequality, that make us rethink our assumptions, that inspire new possibilities for humanity.
It's a beautiful vision, but we also need to be mindful of the downsides and make sure that AI stays a force for good.
Absolutely. We need to approach this with a sense of wonder, but also with a healthy dose of skepticism, embrace the unknown, and acknowledge that chaos will always be part of the equation.
It's a reminder that even when we strive for order, there will always be those forces beyond our control forces that can disrupt our plans and challenge us. But those moments of chaos are also the sparks that ignite creativity, drive innovation, and lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
It's a delicate dance, the interplay between order and chaos. And as we enter the age of AI, that dance is only going to get more complex, more challenging, and ultimately more fascinating.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into chaos rhetoric. We've explored its ancient origins, its expressions in art and politics, and even contemplated its potential future with AI. It's been an incredible journey, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Keep questioning, keep wondering, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos that is life.